everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Bleeding Metal podcast. I'm Kiki. I'm your host. My pronouns are she, her. And today I have a new face and a new voice here with me. And this is the start of a new series that I am calling Pod Friends. So I'm bringing friends of the podcast to have conversations with me since Marta is away for a little bit, and you will get to know my friends that are super cool. Today, we have a person who has worked on the podcast before, behind the scenes. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. I'm Sav, also known as Savvier Nelson or Leechcraft. Yeah, being behind the scenes, I made the jingle for the podcast.
Yes. You composed the jingle that we heard in the beginning of the episode. Also, you have helped me editing a few times whenever there has been like a very challenging episode. For example, those very first Tuska Forum episodes back from 2023 had so much background noise, and you made those all better. So I'm so happy to finally have you here with me and ready to discuss your latest releases. We have talked about Leechcraft in the past on the podcast because just because it's good music and we have recommended it. But this time we get to talk about it with yourself. So do you mind telling us the story of how Leechcraft started?
It was late 2019, I believe, and I was looking to start a metal project, and I ran into this vocalist who was a friend of a friend. I mean, we knew each other, not too well, but by name and such. And we lived in the same town. And then we got together as a duo and we made a single. Mm-hmm. And then we just kind of stuck to it and made a whole record in 2020. And actually managed to even make a gig during the worst COVID times. Somehow we managed to do it. It wasn't cancelled. And we borrowed a bassist from a neighbor band, so to speak, who was performing in another group as well. Mm-hmm. And yeah, then there was a special release in 2021, which was featuring a couple of acoustic versions of already released songs. Mm-hmm. And featuring also Kiki here as well. And then there was a hiatus up until the start of this year, 2025, when I started making the project solo. Mm-hmm. It was a mutual agreement. There wasn't any like drama or bad blood or anything like that. The vocalist still has a very active band that they are performing in. Saattue. Saattue. It's a Finnish name, so it might sound a little weird. But they make like doom. I think it's mostly doom metal. They are really good. I saw them live here as well.
Nice.
So yeah, I started doing the solo record, which is now out. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's where we are. It was released 3 weeks ago.
September 19th.
Yeah, September 19th. Let's just call it that.
We will link that in the show notes. Of course, we will link Leechcraft's socials and where you can find the music, the whole album. It's a really good album, not only because I'm on it, but it's really cool music. I think it's really innovative music. I am just really impressed and really honored to have such cool friends that make such amazing art, and even more when I'm allowed to participate on it. So yeah, thank you so much for that retelling of how Leechcraft came to be. You fully on all of the instruments, on vocals, and the whole production as well. I remember also, for a bit of a background, the way we met online on Twitch, and that was 10 freaking years ago. That is crazy. But 10 years ago, that was the time when I used to play games on Twitch, and it lasted like 6 months. And then I took a hiatus of that for a very long while. But I remember that on the day during the pandemic that I came back to streaming games on Twitch, you were right there in the chat in the first stream, and you were like, I have a band now and I play all of the instruments, and the only thing I don't do is vocals. And that's something that I admire about you. You are a very good self promoter. It never comes across as pushy or arrogant. You're just very chill about it. Like, I do this thing, I think I do it well. Would be cool if you can check it out. And it's like so difficult for me to do the same. So that's how I got to know about Leechcraft. And a year later, and by then we had become such good friends, and you invited me to that acoustic version of Perpetual Twilight that is still one of the most beautiful ballads that I have ever sung on. I have seen the project develop from there, and not only you evolve as an artist, but also all of a sudden a vocalist too. That has been really cool to be part of that journey. I am very proud of you, and I am so happy that you are making such incredible art. Not to minimize your other projects, because as Savvier Nelson, you have also released 3 albums in the meantime.
3.
Do you want to talk about that part of your musicianship as well?
Yeah, I started making electronic music in 2013, and it took me quite a while to make anything worth listening to. Because I started in high school, and YouTube is my biggest teacher, and there's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong, but it does definitely take quite a while to get a grasp of it and get good results with it. Not that music is about results, to reach a certain level of production value and stuff like that. So yeah, and it took me all the way to 2022 to make the first album. And before that, it was just endless amount of singles. And I think the earliest one that is publicly out there is from 2018. So there's a little bit of a gap there, with the older stuff just being a pain to listen to.
Do you do that sometimes?
Sometimes, very rarely, not often, but sometimes I whip out the old hard drive and like take a listen. And it's super cringe, but I encourage any of the musicians listening right now to do it, because if you cringe at your old stuff, it tells you that you've gone onward, you've gotten better, you've gotten more professional with your standards and your abilities. So that's why it's good to do it. And that's also one of the big reasons to just get your stuff out there. Because you can then go back to it, and if it's cringe, then you realize, okay, I've gone onwards from this. And that's a huge thing, because if you're always too scared to put stuff out there, you're never going to reach that
feeling of success.
Yes, that.
Or just growth, just a little bit of retrospective growth. I know what you mean. I do that too sometimes when I want to feel really good about myself.
Yeah.
On my phone, I have the release back then. What was it? Now I would call it an EP. Back then we called it a demo. But actually, we went to the studio. We had a graphic designer do our album art. And it was just, I think, 4 tracks. And one of them was instrumental because we're guitarists. But the band was called, that was my very first band that I started in Ecuador in 2004 even. Yeah, 2004. And the band was called Wicked. It was amazing.
Wicked.
Yeah. So I listened to those and I'm like, oh my God, tiny little Kiki teenage boys. That is so cute. And then I do listen through my Vampirica stuff and now to Ember Cold, and it's like, okay, wow, I have accomplished some growth with my vocals. It's a nice feeling for sure. And it's also inspiring. Sometimes you have ideas that you would now do differently, not necessarily better, but just differently. And that can fuel current projects or current ideas too. So look at what you have accomplished in your past. That's some good pieces of advice right here already. Want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, your childhood, your growing up? Who are you as a human being?
Okay. Well, before I jump into that, I'll correct myself about the EDM albums, and that is 4. I had to check it myself as well.
4 just between 2020 and 2025.
Yeah, I mean the
Wow.
last one was this year, 2025, and it's not a fully fledged thought out album because it's a bunch of singles that I compiled into an album. But I still think it counts because it's 15 tracks.
Damn.
Yeah, I would still count it as an album.
Right.
But yeah, about me, God, who am I?
You were born in a
I was born in a cave. I'm Finnish, lived all my life in a town of 30,000 people up until when I graduated and moved here to my current job 4 years ago. So I'm a small town boy, I guess. Yeah, I got into music what I think is nowadays considered a late age, in today's world of prodigies and musical wizards, and there's so much like talent and highly skilled people. But I picked up the guitar when my parents got married, and my dad got a wedding gift, a acoustic guitar, and that's kind of the same time I picked up the guitar. And I think that was in 3rd or 4th grade in primary school. And yes, I just said that was late, but nowadays I see like
toddlers playing.
Toddlers pick up instruments, and then that just kind of makes me think, okay, I'm just gonna quit. Why do I bother? But yeah, I've been playing guitar like for a long time, but I'm not a virtuoso because I haven't practiced in years, just being like casual playing. Then somewhere along the way, I picked up the drums and the bass. Bass I've played quite a bit, actually, because I've been in numerous cover bands.
Nice.
Most of them not metal. It's like these Finnish evergreen classics, and I've done a couple of weddings, and because there's always like 10 guitarists and nobody plays the bass. So I've learned to kind of fill that spot as well. Yeah, and then in high school, I picked up the production side of things, and that has stuck to me for the longest time. Of course, I play the instruments still. And then came in the vocal stuff in 2021. I first stumbled upon it in, I think, 2019 when I found out about the Cardavox Academy YouTube channel.
Right.
Yeah, which has been a very big inspiration and source of information and wisdom and all of that throughout my vocal journey, if you may call it one.
Oh, yes.
The latest thing that I've been practicing most and putting most effort into is the vocal stuff. And I finally seriously put myself out there with this new record.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that new record. You were just saying that one of the albums that you put out as Savvier Nelson of the EDM albums was 15 track. That's something that it has in common with Leechcraft, which is the name not only of the band, but also of the album. And it has 15 tracks. That is actually quite a lot. Let's start right there. How long had you been working on it that you had so many songs to put out?
I started in last January, so January 2025. I uploaded the album to my distribution service in late July. So a bit more than half a year-ish, because I think the last month was just all the tracks were ready. And it was all about these minor changes and tweaks about the mastering and just re-listening and going through them and finally setting the last version. Yeah, so 6 to 7 months-ish was the whole production time.
Has it always been like that? Like you have a song idea and you can just make it happen that quickly?
Depends a little bit because, for example, Fading Embers, that is track 14 on this record, was difficult. That one took quite a while. That was one of the first ones that I started for this album, and it was one of the last ones that I finished. It was really tough to come up with a structure and kind of how to take this specific part to the next one and tie them together. That was somehow really difficult. And not to even mention the vocals, that there's that one probably has the most takes overall.
What was so challenging about it?
I think that just the genre and the theme, because it's heavily inspired by Vola. To me personally, that's a difficult genre to make. It requires a little bit more like finesse and thought and just effort to make things flow from one beat to the next one. I can't quite tell what it is, but yeah, it has to do with the genre for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But there are other genres with which you are more familiar, because you were mentioning that some of the tracks from the first half of the album have very heavy inspirations from other bands. What was it? The After the Burial dedication?
Killswitch Engage Love Letter.
Right.
I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
That would probably be the more easy genre to make or easy type of song to make, just because I grew up with Killswitch Engage and this early 2000s metalcore aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that comes out the most naturally. Not that the other ones are like unnatural, but those kind of songs have the most traditional song structure. So there's usually an intro into A and the B into A and the B and the C and
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But compare that into, let's say, Liquid Sun or Remember Me, those are just all around the place. They are pretty progressive, even they don't repeat parts that often. And there's crazy tempo changes and stuff like that. Those require more thought and more planning so they don't get out of hand.
How about we take a short detour before we come back to this for you to tell us how you got into metal. What was your first encounter with heavy music?
Somewhere around the same time that I got the guitar. And so in primary school, I was in this friend group. I think it was 8 or 9 of us. And we all more or less shared the same taste in music, which at the time was all about Metallica. Then a bit later, I listened to a lot of Lamb of God. I still do. I still like him. That led me later to discover Killswitch Engage and Parkway Drive, which is a really big metalcore influence, especially the first few albums with their guitar work. And it just kind of kept on rolling from that.
Awesome. And those influences you can see now as well. So going back to Leechcraft, for me, it's one of the biggest strengths about the album that it explores so many different areas. And I guess something that not everyone likes and that was criticized in an album review. So before we completely go into album reviews, a conversation that you and I have had so many times in the recent months is how the bands that we listen to in common, like Spirit Box and Make Them Suffer, can innovate so much and how they do it in a mind-blowing way. So when I listen to music that might be really good but has nothing new to my ears, I get bored. So the latest Spirit Box album and last year when Make Them Suffer came out with theirs, there are just things that blew my mind right there, and everything else bores me. And that is something that I actually appreciate a lot about Leechcraft, because right when you think, okay, this is this type of music and this album is going to be like this, then all of a sudden there's a bluegrass song in the middle of it. And it's like, so well done. And it paints a picture. That was kind of my segue into album reviews and critiques and reactions. And first of all, did you ever read album reviews?
Not ever, no. Can't say I have.
Is there a content creator, a journalist, person on social media or traditional media, wherever, is there someone that you look up to that you think they have kind of the same music taste as I do? If they recommended it, must be good.
First, the one that comes to mind is Mark from Cardavax Academy. He sometimes throws out some recommendations mid-video or something about albums that he's been listening to. And it's just about the fact that he hears certain things that are cool. And not to call out every vocalist out there, but he is a vocalist and he still pays so much attention to the instrumentals as well. So I respect that level of thought that he puts into tracks. Even though he does do like reaction content, mainly focusing on vocals, that's what he does. And nonetheless, he can still appreciate the other side of things. And so that's the first one that comes to mind right now. In addition to that, just my friends who listen to the same kind of music as I do. Yeah.
Otherwise, how do you discover music?
Titles, recommendations, and playlists, which are really good. I listen to a lot of albums, just from top to bottom albums. And when it runs out, of course, it's going to recommend something else, or not even recommend, it's just going to play something based on that. And I've discovered a lot of great tracks just from that. Whatever titles algorithm is doing, it's doing a good job.
Yeah. When we first started what now is the Bleeding Metal podcast, back in 2013, Pia and I started this online magazine back then that was called Metal and High Heels. And we were ahead of our times, I think. We wanted to do reviews and live reports and interviews with bands, but also have it be like a lifestyle magazine for women who like metal. So it was a bit chaotic, but it was nice. And we did write a lot of reviews, but at some point we had this conversation. Pia and I were talking about how, to a certain degree, we had a bit of a responsibility with our audience, because at the end of the day, we can't be recommending things that we don't really believe are good, or just, complimenting things because we are talking to the artist. We also have to be a little critical. And sometimes I think that can be a trap, because when you go into the listening process with this kind of critical eye, and you start looking for the mistakes or for the things that are not on par, you can be a little mean. And I do remember a few times when I just wanted to be mean. And I do remember the time I was the meanest to a band, and I said that there was no reason for them existing. To be fair, it was kind of a cover band. Pop music arranged into metal with 4 really good metal vocalists, all of them female. It was more a product than an artist, in my opinion. And I had the chance to interview them, and they had read the review, and they were pretty mad at me. But we were very civil, and we had a discussion, and that episode is still on YouTube, and it's probably still on this feed as well. So if you are curious about that, there is my interview with Exit Eden. You can find it at some point. It happened at Wacken in 2017. As an artist myself, I know what it feels to be criticized, and it can be a really hard pill to swallow. And I think you have been confronted a little bit with that recently. Do you want to talk about your experience with that?
Well, yeah. So I got one review pre-release date even, actually. It was in German, so I had to translate it, but I got the point. Numerically, it was 5.5 out of 10, which is pretty rough.
It's not that bad, but it's not good.
It's not good. So yeah, there were points about some annoying drum samples and how the album doesn't know where it's going and such. And I don't know about the drum samples. I think the drums sound really good, even though they are indeed programmed. And I do get the point that the album doesn't know where it's going, because it is a little out there. I do get that. Going back to your point about not being surprised about anything anymore, or not being impressed, I love Meshuggah. Let me just clear that. I love Meshuggah. I look up to them a lot. They are one of my favorite bands, but they do just keep on releasing the same thing over and over. They do that, and that has really dropped my interest in their new stuff. I adore their old stuff still. They have this specific charm in them, and yeah, I'm just kind of lost the interest in their newer stuff. And they're still one of my favorite bands. I'm not calling them out and saying they are bad. Definitely not. They are great. But just talking about how an album can pique your interest, or just you listen to the first one and you know, okay, the next 12 are going to be the same. I don't want to get that impression so that every track would be the same. Okay, well, the next one I will probably not be so widely spread like across the spectrum of genres. So yeah, that was the one on a written review, and the other one was from a reaction channel in Twitch. I think mostly in Twitch, but they upload like highlights to YouTube or stuff like that. And I paid $10 to get a live reaction, and then oh my god, this is so ridiculous. I had to wait. I started on place 10. And I roughly calculated, okay, it's 5 minutes per, and they are going to talk a little bit in the middle. So it's going to be like 1.5 hours or maybe even 2 hours. And after 2 hours, they were watching white people dancing compilation videos and auto-tuned babies crying in the stream. And okay, yeah, sure, it is your stream. You decide what you do there. But if somebody pays you to react to their thing, for the love of everything that is holy, just get through with the list. Respect their time, respect their money, respect their investment in this. And then they finally played it and they paused it in the middle. I was furious. I just got nothing out of it. It was a terrible waste of my time and money.
Did you not get one follower? I think there was 1 or 2 people actually interested in the music and in the project in the chat.
I believe so. I didn't get any followers that day, but I have gotten a couple of bumps in the followers. So maybe later that day or later that week or something. So I can't say for sure because it's just a graph. There's no any specific details to it. That was just not a good experience. And
yeah.
But other than that, all my like closer friends and have given me some really good feedback. And there has been a lot of different favorites from the album. That was a surprise to me because there's not a single that rises above the others. I would have guessed like Claws is the top dog for sure. But there's a lot of different favorites in there. Yeah, that surprised me. So it's not all of these weird reviews and such. And I've gotten some really good and valuable feedback as well.
That was a long answer. And what you were saying about Meshuggah, that's the way I feel about Epica. They were my favorite band for so long. And now I feel like, yeah, they are just putting out the same album in a little different package. Of course, they get better as musicians, but nothing surprises me anymore. I would love for their next album to like blow my mind again. Otherwise, about their review, 5.5. I think it's a little bit unfair to ask from a newcomer to already know what their style is, to already have defined their sound. Newcomers are the first ones. You should cut some slack in terms of go explore, do everything. If those 15 tracks are 15 different metal subgenres, awesome. Explore whatever you want to explore. Look for your own sound everywhere until you find it. And this was your second album. And the first one, where you did absolutely everything, including the vocals, which is the main difference to what you did on your first Leechcraft album. So for me, this is the debut of the real Leechcraft. And for that, I think it's more than fair to have you explore all of the different sounds that you might want to explore further in future releases. I just published an episode of the podcast with Lucas from the German metalcore band Devil May Care. And he was also saying that the first few albums were an exploration until they found they were more metalcore than the pop punk or whatever it was that they started doing, that they started off with. So this is an absolutely natural part of the musician journey. And at the end of the day, the thing about reviews and reactions, etc., they're just opinions. taste is very subjective. We all have different tastes and we all like different things in different music genres, and that's how it works. So that's what I started asking with that kind of caveat, because if you find, and with you, I'm referring to anyone out there, if you find that you have a common taste with an influencer, a journalist, or someone, and you look up to the criteria that they analyze or criticize music with, and you watch their content or whatever, then that's great. But how often does that happen? Nowadays, I do find a lot of new music through these kind of reaction videos on TikTok, on Instagram. And I think more than the title algorithm, the TikTok algorithm really, really gives me a lot of new bands to explore. But we also don't know how those deals work. So your experience with the paying $10 to have a live reaction on Twitch, with the potential that if he really likes it, he will post it to because on Twitch, his audience is not huge, but his following on TikTok and Instagram is massive. Actually, shout out to Yoko, our friend of the podcast as well, from the band Invoke. It was another reaction channel, and someone from the Invoke fan base paid the $10 or something like that to have their very first single last year, and they went viral. So those $10 can be a really little price to pay to gain a whole new international fan base, but you never know. So your marketing budget depends on the taste of a person you don't really know. It's really weird times that we're living.
Yeah.
And I don't think that should be anyone's only avenue to explore trying to promote their music, but it's for sure worth the try. But yeah, we are slowly getting to the end of our episode. What are you listening to nowadays?
I've been listening to quite a bit of this divorced dad rock playlist entitled. I'm not even kidding. There's a bunch of great songs. It's not even a playlist, it's an album, actually. It's like a compilation album. The Shine Down, Nickelback, My Chemical Romance, Stone Temple Pilots, Simple Plan, Matchbox 20, Skillet.
That sounds like my gateway into heavier music. That's how I started.
That's good. Like Creed, Nickelback, Stained. How would you call that? What is it even? It's
Alternative rock.
alt rock? Yeah, I guess. Because I had a more intense new metal phase, and I've laid down the corn a little bit, so now I'm listening to alt rock, it seems, for the most part.
Nice. Well, I'm happy to report that 2 days ago, I went on a run fueled by Cramian by Leechcraft. I recommend that to everyone. I really love how upbeat it is. And that is only one of the many very cool songs on this album that I will link in the show notes for sure. That has been it. It's been a lot of fun to have you on the podcast. I'm very open about things on the podcast always, as I am on Twitch with the community and everything as well. To longtime listeners of the podcast, I may at some point have called you my partner. We were in a romantic relationship a few years ago. And so it's even more special to have built this very cool, very musical friendship all over the years. Nowadays, we can write music together, like Dinner Scene on Leechcraft, on the Leechcraft album as well. I appreciate all of that. And to have you on the podcast. This was a long time in the making, I guess. It was finally time that you appeared on the Bleeding Metal podcast. Thank you always for all your support. And I hope we will have you back at some point with a new release.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
So everyone out there, don't forget to subscribe to the Bleeding Metal podcast wherever you listen. Tell your friends, especially watch our video episodes on YouTube. And if you ever want to spend some time on Twitch, we will link those channels in the show notes as well. We will see you very soon.
Bye.